which is a mockup and prototype tool that designers use to create screens that you see on apps or websites or any digital product, really. And then, so a brief introduction about myself. So hi again, I'm Serena, and I recently graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in economics this past May. And previously, if you asked me a year ago, I probably would have told you that I was going to be an accountant. But then after taking several design courses in college, I realized how much I love design. And so for my current work history, I am currently a product design intern at Disney+. And last summer, I was a product design intern at the New York Times. And so for my hobbies, besides when I'm not working, I enjoy making aesthetic drinks, watching too many TikTok and YouTube videos, writing handwritten letters and collecting stickers, and binging the latest K-drama, anime, or really any award-winning film, which is really needed right now during quarantine. And so my contact is serenacha@berkeley.edu. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about working in tech, working in media, going to Berkeley, or just anything in general. And the link to these slides, Farah can send out, I guess, later. Okay, so first off, I guess, what is product design? So product design is the process of imagining, creating, and iterating products that address users' problems or needs in a given market. And so traditionally, product design mainly involved the design of physical products, so such as like packaging, designing laptops, headphones, headsets, cars. But then nowadays, product design encompasses digital products such as apps, websites, which is what I specialize in. And so as a product designer, I am constantly thinking about what are the business objectives and the user needs. And so, for example, say that I worked for Netflix. And so Netflix comes to me and says that they want to increase subscribers. And so as a product designer, my job would be to brainstorm new ideas, features, and designs that would help Netflix generate more subscribers. And so that might look like creating a rewards program, maybe having a discount on Netflix, or even highlighting new content that would engage new users to want to subscribe to Netflix. And so in terms of a user, say that, again, I'm working for Netflix, and that a user is having a difficulty finding the second season of a TV series. And so as a product designer, my job would be to help make that experience of navigating different additional seasons much easier for that user. And so this graphic is like the typical design process that most companies follow. And so in the first phase, during the discovery phase, we try to discover new information about our audience, about our customers. And then we move on to the define phase, where we're trying to identify and really define the problem at hand. And then we move on to the diverge phase, where we work on exploring different ideas and directions that we can move forward with and really narrow down to a single solution during the validation phase. And we will work on designing and testing out that solution with real users. And so within product design, you will commonly hear the terms UI and UX design, which are typically reserved for designers of digital products. And so the UI in UI design stands for user interface. And so user interface is like the graphical layout of an application. It consists of the buttons you click on, text size, color, typography, images, and really anything that, any visual element that a user interacts with. So this could either be layout, the transitions, and interface animations. And so any sort of visual element is considered to be part of UI design. And so the goal of UI design is being able to reduce the complicated into something simple. And so it's very easy to make things complex. And the real challenge is, how can we make something that is simple and really easy for the audience to understand? So for example, when you see an icon, can you decipher it immediately without any additional context, or are you having difficulty interpreting what that means? And so if you can easily interpret that icon, that means it's a really good UI design. And so again, UI design is self-explanatory and should be understandable for the user. And so if you find an element of your interface requires additional instructions or explanations, you should consider redesigning it to make it much simpler for a user to understand. And so for someone who is a UI designer, their work might look something like this, which is definitely more visually focused. There's different colors, images, typography, font sizes that are really trying to engage the user. And then we also have UX design, which stands for user experience design. And so a UX designer thinks about the whole user experience of an app or a website and how that user will interact with the products. So if I was a UX designer, some questions I would ask myself is this experience smooth and intuitive, or is it clunky and confusing for a user? Does navigating this app feel logical, or does it feel unnecessary? When I'm interacting with this app, do people feel like they can efficiently accomplish their task, or does it feel like it's a struggle? And so UX design is really the process of deeply understanding the user's needs and objectives. And so it's rarely focused on a single screen, and UX design really focuses on the entire user journey from the moment that a user logs into an app until the moment that they have completed the task that they set out to do. And so UX design really focuses on solving problems through empathy and trying to remove any obstacles that might take away from a user's experience. And also the benefit is like you get to bring delight and see people really enjoy the features you create. And so someone who's a UX designer, their work may look something like this, which is definitely a lot more sticky notes, research, strategy focused. They do brainstorming, and then they create like rough sketches of what an app or an experience might look like. And then this is a great graphic that I like that really highlights the differences between UI and UX design. So UX design is definitely more focused on research and strategy, while UI design is definitely the more visual component. And if you think of UI and UX design in terms of creating a house, so UX design can be seen as like the framework or a structure, and then the UI design is like the completed product where when the house is like painted and decorated. And here's another great graphic that I like that also shows the differences between UI and UX design. So for the UI side, you can see that it's definitely focused on the visual elements, again, with like adding colors, typography, images, while for UX design, it's definitely more the bare bones structure, the framework, trying to really convey what the idea is. And then this is a great graphic that shows how roles are designated between UX and UI design. And so if you're a UX designer, your roles may focus mainly on creating like the interactions, creating wireframes and prototypes, doing user research and looking at different use cases or scenarios. And for a UI designer, you might focus more on the visual design. So the colors, the layout, the typography and such. And so previously I mentioned the word wireframe. And so a wireframe is a blueprint of the future design, for future designs. And so it is a structure of a page or screen made with like simple blocks and not many graphics. And so this is an example of what a wireframe would look like. As you can see, it's very simple. It's like grayscale or just like rectangles, shapes, and like basic text that is really, and the purpose of wireframes is to really just convey an idea to like your team member or to like your audience. So usually when you're working on projects, you have a very short time frame. And so if you wanted to like fully fledge out every idea that you had, that would take way too much time. So wireframes are a great way for designers to quickly sketch out and show their team or the user what the idea that they have and quickly get feedback from that. And then moving on, we also have a mockup. So a mockup is like the final iteration of the UI design. And so this is an example of a mockup that I created for a freelance project. And so the client wanted to create a website for her online theater company. And so I created this on Figma, which is trying to show what the website would look like when it's completed. And so again, this is not like actually live and you can't really click into it, but this is just a visual representation of what the website would look like. And then again, we have some screens that I created for today's demo, which is for the Airbnb homepage and search page. And so we'll be working on creating these screens today. And then moving on, we also have a prototype. And so a prototype is a simulation of how a product, and that shows how it works. And so this is a great graphic that shows the behind the scenes of, so all these like little connection lines that you see are showing the relationship between the different screens. And so if you click this button, where will it take you next? If you scroll up, where will that take me in the next part of the flow? If I click right or left, what screen will I be taken to? And so all these like little lines are showing the connections between the screens. And then I also just have a short video of a prototype that I created for Disney Plus. And so for this project, we were trying to show what the experience might look like if a user was navigating between for episodes in a TV series using a remote control. And so for this, we wanted to convey to developers that we're working with and really help them visualize the idea that we had. And so prototypes are a great way to really convey your idea to someone as well. And so that kind of concludes this presentation for now. And then we're going to jump into the demo. So if everyone could like type in this URL, so tinyurl.com/figma-basics, and move on to that. And you should be taken to a Dropbox paper document with kind of step-by-step instructions. And so I guess I can answer any quick questions that anyone might have as of now before we jump into the demo and tutorial. Does anyone have any questions, or I will start jumping into the tutorial? So okay, I'm reading through these questions real quick. So how does the visualization look so real? Does the real thing look similar to the prototype or the mockup, or is it very different? So sometimes we'll create a prototype, and if developers, we have conversations with engineers and developers, and they'll tell us, oh, yes, this is more possible. And sometimes, oh, no, this is too difficult. We don't have the resources to do so. And so sometimes you have to be able to make adjustments to your prototype. But the idea would be that in a perfect world, we would have a live product that would look exactly like the prototype, but that's not always the case. And so do you need to design between UI and UX? So I would say typically in the industry, you're expected to know how to do both. So you can say, so a product designer, you definitely have to have both the UX and the UI background. But I would say that within, like, as you become more senior level, there are people who definitely like specialize in a specific field. They still do both, but then some people are more focused towards the UX side and more people are focused on the UI side. And so personally, I'm more focused on the UX side, because I really care about understanding the journey and thinking about strategy, which is what I'm all about. Okay, and will I get these slideshows by email? Yes, so Farah can definitely send all these documents later on after this presentation. Is your line of work, is it necessary to have experience in programming or computer science? And so I came from an economics background, so I did not know coding at all, but I did take one web design course, and that just introduced me to like understanding code. And I would say that you don't need to know how to code, but then it's definitely helpful if you do have that background, because you can think that, oh, if I design this feature, is it actually physically possible for an engineer to do it from their perspective? And so just having that additional perspective really helps with the design process. And so I'm going to answer just a few more questions because I want to make sure that we have time for the demo. And so is coding focused and UX more design? I wouldn't say that any of it's more focused on coding. I would say that UI is definitely just the main element. I would say that usually UX comes first, and then usually you would then focus on the UI. So first you would do your user research, understand what is your problem, what are your company goals, what are the user needs, and then you would start brainstorming ideas that really tackle that problem. And then after you kind of come up with different ideas and features that you want to design, then maybe you'll work with a UI designer and really create that idea you have and make sure it comes to life. And so I guess, yeah, I guess one of the last questions is, how did I go from economics to design? I would say that it was definitely through design courses at college. I did not know what I wanted to do in my sophomore year of college. I was like panicking, thinking that I was going to be an accountant, but I did not really feel like that was for me. And after taking my first web design and graphic design course, I was like, this is so amazing. I really love this. I want to learn more about it. And so luckily, I was really fortunate to have a really great design community at my college where we had a club where we worked on semester-long projects. And so that was where I got to learn the basics of Figma. And so I was a total newbie to Figma too. Like 2 years ago, if you asked me, I wouldn't be able to imagine that I was doing this presentation. But I really love what I do. And so I hope that if you guys have any questions, again, you guys can feel free to email me at my email, which is serenacha@berkeley.edu. And so now I'll jump into the demo. Okay, so everyone should be taken to this Dropbox paper document. And so today we'll be going over Figma, which is a cloud-based design tool, and it's useful for team collaboration and prototyping user interfaces and experiences. And so I would compare Figma to like the Google Documents, where you're able to collaborate with people and really edit your designs and get comments and feedback from it as well. And so the idea is that you can mock up designs and interactions on a mobile, tablet, web, or TV device, or even smartwatch if you wanted to. And so for students, Figma is free, and so you can click the link down here to be taken to this. So definitely apply for that free education plan. And then today we'll be going over the basics for an Airbnb iOS application for these two screens of creating the homepage and the search menu. And so the first step, I guess, I will do is go to Figma. And so once you create an account, you should be taken to a page that looks similar to this. And so if you see this add icon here, I'm going to add a new file or add a new project. And then if you ever need help or want to look at resources, you can always click this question mark at the bottom, and Figma has a great support system where they can easily help you with all your needs. And so I'm going to click into this add button here. And so I created a new project. And so if I click on this part where it says untitled, I'm going to name this project. And so I'm going to name this Airbnb tutorial. And you've already created like your first project. And so also I have my Airbnb intro where I created the screens. So if you ever get stuck or need help, you can go into this Dropbox file, and it should be linked around somewhere here. It's like, here's an example of what it should look like, and you click into that. You can see the tutorial that I made, and then you can also duplicate this. So please make sure to duplicate this because I gave edit privileges so that people can change things, but please make sure that you duplicate this file so that other people can still use it. And so again, if you want to go to duplicate, go to this caret drop-down menu and then click duplicate, and then you should have your own copy that you can edit on in your workstation. And so going back to the tutorial, I guess I'll briefly explain these three tabs first on the right here. And so we have the design tab, the prototype tab, and the inspect tab. And so the design tab is mainly focused on creating your layout, thinking about your typography, your color, if you want to add effects. And so if I created a quick shape, you can see all the properties here. So the width, the height, angle, radius, the any effect. And then for type, if I was working with screen, I would create those in people trying to of your shape and tools on the is just um,
Okay, I think Serena may have had a technical difficulty. I'll email her and see what I
you guys hear me now? See my screen?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Am I back? No? Okay, can you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
Can you guys still see my screen? Perfect.
We can see
Sorry about that, guys. And then we also have, you can see my screen? Can we see my screen?
We can only see your video.
Yeah, let's see my video. Okay, let me try again. Yes, no? Screen, yes. Hopefully, it says I'm sharing.
Yeah, now
Yes?
we can see it.
Perfect. Okay. And then, so we also have this like hashtag looking icon, which is your frame tool. And so here you'll be able to create different screens. And so if I go back to the design tab, you see these different options. So if I was creating for a phone, if I was creating for a tablet device, if I was creating for a desktop, a watch, and so on. And so for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm gonna do an iPhone 8 Plus screen because that's the phone I have. And so, ta-da, you already have like your first screen created and already gives you the dimensions for that phone screen. And then we also have like this rectangle tool, which allows you to create squares, rectangles, and if you click the drop down, you can also create like rectangles, lines, arrows, ellipses, other polygons if you wanted to do so. And then here we have our pen tool. And so this allows you to kind of draw your own shapes and stuff like that. And it's a bit difficult to use for the first try because you have to create your images or like your shapes through using vectors or points. And so if I wanted to create like a curve, I would have to drag it and then release it. And so I would have to do that again. And then trying to close it, I would like have to make sure that I'm not the best at this tool, but it's definitely one that is super fun if you're into more visual design. And so in the Dropbox document, I have a great exercise if you guys are interested in learning more about the pen tool. And so here, if you click into the link here, it's called the Bezier game, and you can definitely try to become a master at this pen tool. And so I'm going to just quickly delete that. And then we also have our text tool here. And then this hand tool just allows you to move things. And then we also have the comment tool, which is great if you're collaborating with other people. And here you can give like ask questions, give feedback, or just leave a note on a part of an element of a screen. And then here we also have the share button, and this is way I can share like my documents with people and just like copy the link through that. And so we also have this play icon, which allows you to preview your prototype or your mockup on like the device that you selected. And so if I hit play here, I selected the iPhone 8 and it will show me the iPhone 8 screen for like the mockup. If I create like an iPhone 10, then it would have shown me like an iPhone 10. And so I get to read to copy and just paste to read the search bar.
It's not just my laptop that's acting up, right? Her voice is breaking up, I think.
Yeah, I think she may.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought it might be something wrong with my Wi-Fi, and I was like, yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with my internet today. I promise it's not always like this. Okay. Can you guys see my screen again? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I hope that this doesn't happen anymore. So for our home screen. So right now I'm going to try to create this search bar here. And so I'm going to click into that, and we're going to select our rectangle tool here. And so the shortcut for that is hotkey R. So if you want to just quickly select the rectangle tool, just click R. And so I'm going to eyeball the search bar, and over here I can personally adjust the width and the height for my liking. And so I'm going to do 358 pixels by 52. And so you can totally make this how you want. I'm just eyeballing about what I assume that Airbnb did for their search bar. And so I want to center align this. So I'm going to click that. And then if you click the Option key or Alt key for PCs, you can see your spacing from your rectangle from the rest of the screen. And so I am 28 pixels from the left and 20 pixels from the right, and 47 pixels from the top, and 637 pixels from the bottom. And so just to be consistent, I want to be 28 pixels from the top. And so I can go to the Y coordinates here and change that to 28. And then if I click the Option or Alt key again, I can see that I'm perfectly 28, 28, and 28 from the left, top, and the right. And so I'm going to change the corners into a bit more rounded to match what the search bar looks like for Airbnb. And so I'm going to go to this rounded corner over here and type in 3. And so now if you zoom in, you can see that the corners have been a little more rounded out. And then for the color, I'm going to make it have a fill of white. So you can select here, and then you can just drag up this against the color panel all the way to the top. And then that code for that would be FFFF. And so now you can tell that I have a rectangle. So I'm going to add an effect. And so if you go down here to Effect and click the Add icon, you will have a drop shadow added. And so if you click into the sun, you are able to adjust this effect. And so I'm going to give it an X and Y coordinate of 0 because I want the drop shadow to appear all around it. And so for blur, I think I'll do about 16. And then for how dark I want it for opacity, I will do 15. And you can definitely adjust these to your own liking. And so this is what I decided to use, but you definitely don't have to follow this. And for best practices, I definitely always like to rename my elements in my layer panel so that I can quickly find them. And so this is currently labeled rectangle 1, but I'm going to rename it search bar. And then I am also going to need a search bar for my search screen, so I just can copy this, Command C, and then I can Command V, paste it over here. And I have 2 search bars now. And so going back to the home screen, you can see that there's also this search icon over here. And so if back in this Google document, you can find that I included a Google Drive over here with the assets that I'll be using in today's tutorial. And so I can quickly just download this icon here for the magnifying glass. And then you can just drag and drop that into your frame. And so right now it's really big, so you can drag the corners and then try to adjust it to make it smaller. Or you can also go over to your design panel here and then quickly adjust it. So I'm going to click this constrain proportions icon, and that allows it for the width and the height to auto adjust so that it is scaled and proportional. And so I want to make this about 18 pixels. And so I'm going to zoom in. And then the great thing about Figma is that it gives you indicators if you are like centered a line. And so right now you see this red line, which is still telling me that I am aligned to this rectangle here. And so I want the spacing to be about 20 from the left part of this rectangle. And so I'm going to just shift it over with my arrow key here to be 20. And then the next part I'm going to do is now add this text over here that says like try Orlando, but here I can, for my mockup, I decided to write what are you looking for? And so you can click the text icon on the top, or you can use the shortcut T. So I can click T here, and then I'm going to type in what are you looking for? And so for now that I click create a text, you can see that there's a text pop up here, and I can change that font. And so for this tutorial, I'll be using the font Rubik, which is most similar to the font that Adobe Airbnb uses. And so the great thing about Figma is that it already has Google Fonts downloaded, and you can also add your own local fonts if you wanted to do so. And so now that I have this text, I can also adjust the size of it. And so I think I want it to be a size 16 font. And then I'm going to change this to be medium so that it's a bit more prominent for the user to see. And so if I wanted to match this color to my magnifying glass icon, the great tool that Figma has is the eyedropper tool. And so the shortcut for that would be I. And so if you click on the eye tool, I can zoom in and I can click onto this, to the magnifying glass, and I can eyedrop it. And now my text is the same color as the icon. And so again, I just want to center align this to my rectangle. And so if you want to select two elements at the same time, you can just drag them, or you can just click the white item, and then you can also hit shift and click on another element. And so I'm going to hit those two together. And so I want these two elements, so the magnifying glass and the text, to have a spacing of 20. And so once I've selected both of these items, I can adjust the spacing here. And so I want the horizontal spacing to be 20 as well. And so great, now you have like a search bar. And so next I'm going to go over to the search screen here. And I want to make this search bar a little bit shorter than the other search bar because we have to save room for the part that says cancel over here. Cancel over here. And so I'm going to go over back to my page here, and then I can just like drag it to adjust the size. And so for me, I think I want it to be 300. And I personally just like to work with even numbers because that's just a best practice that I learned from other designers, because when you're working with developers, sometimes they will have to scale your design up and down by like 200%, 300%, or scale it down by like 75%. And just working in even numbers really helps make that a lot easier. And so here I'm going to add the text, try Orlando, I believe is what it says. Try Orlando, yes. So I'm going to type try Orlando. And then I'm going to change my fill here. And so if I click the fill icon, now that it saved the font that I used previously, or the color I used previously, and so I'll click this gray color over here. And so I'm just going to select both of these items by hitting shift. And then I'm going to make sure that it's aligned. And then I want the spacing to also be 20 away from the left border of this search bar. And so I'm just going to shift it over here. And then I'm 11 away. So I'm going to just do that to make sure it's 20. And so perfect. And then now I want to add the cancel text. So again, I'm going to press the shortcut T and then just type cancel. And so I want this text to be slightly smaller than the text in the search bar. And so I'm going to make that a font of size of 14, and I don't want it to be as big and prominent, so I'm going to make it regular. And for the font color here, I'm going to keep it a little darker than black. I think I want to use, let's see, a color that's gray. Okay, I like this color, so I'm using the hex code 7B, 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 but feel free to choose whatever color you want. I just wanted a color that's a little bit darker than this text here. And so again, I want to make sure that these are aligned together. And so I'll just shift select that rectangle and then make sure they're aligned. And so I'm hitting Option again just to check my spacing. And so I want the spacing from the edge of the screen to be 28. So I'll just shift my cancel in a bit more. And then let me see if there's anything that I'm missing from this. Okay, so that looks good. And so if you want to group these elements together so that you don't have to individually click them, you can select all of them together, and then you can right click and do group selection. Or the shortcut for that is Command G. And so I'm going to rename this group and call it search bar. And then again here, I'll do the same. I'm going to select all two elements, and then group it together. And so you can see all your layers here in your layer panel. And so I'm going to rename that search bar as well. And so over here, now we're going to move over to the prototype just because I really want to make sure we have time for this. So we can go into our prototype selection tab here. And so we're going to select our home screen, or we're going to select this first search bar on the home screen. And so you can add an interaction here. And so I'm going to add an interaction. And so I'm going to drag this point down here and drag it to the search screen. And so it says on tap, it's going to navigate to the search screen. And so the animation for now is instant, but feel free to play around with these different other animation tools and see how that interaction will look like. And then similarly, if I select cancel, I want to be able to go back to the home screen. And so selecting cancel, you will add another interaction, and then you're going to drag this point back to the home screen. And so again, I'm just going to have the animation as instant, but feel free to play around with those. And so if you play or present your mockup now, you should be able to have those interactions. And so if I click onto the search bar, it will now take me to the search page. And if I select cancel, it should take me back to the home page. And so now we'll be going back to designing the rest of our homepage. And so we want to now add these date tags and guest tags that we have. And so I'm going to create another rectangle and use my shortcut R. And I want this size to be a width of about 80 and a height of about 36. And then I want to round my corners out again. So I'm going to have a corner radius of 3. And then I want the fill to not be totally white, but a slightly off-white. So maybe I will just keep scrolling until I find a color that I think matches. And so I like the color, I think this is good. So I'm going to use this color, so F5, 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 but feel free to just use a slightly darker white. And so I'm also going to add a stroke to this just so that it is prominent. That's a tag. And so I'm going to change this stroke color to something a bit darker. And let me see. What do I like? I think I'm going to choose something like A5, A5, A5. And so now we have a stroke and we have a filled in rectangle. And so I'm going to now add the text for it. So hitting the shortcut T, I'm going to type in dates. And then I want this text to be slightly smaller, so I'm going to make it a size 14, and I'm going to have it be a regular font. And so selecting these two elements together, I just want to make sure that they are vertically and horizontally aligned. And so for the dates, I'm going to just change that color back to one of the colors we were recently using. So that color is like 959595. Or do I want? I like this color. I'm going to do that color. And then I'm going to just group these two together. So Command G, or you can right click and say group selection. So I'm going to rename this date tag. And so for spacing, I just want this date tag to be left aligned with this search bar. And so I'm going to select those two elements and click left align. And then for spacing here, I just want to make it sure a little closer. So I'm going to do about 24. And so a best practice in design is also to have things spaced out by like 4s or by 8s, just because that makes things a lot easier for developing, again, when you're scaling up or scaling down. And so now I'm going to copy this. So I can do Command C and then Command V. And then so it pasted a tag right on top of the dates tag. And so I can just shift that over. And so I want this to be about 16 pixels away from the dates tag. So I'm just going to move that. And then I'm going to name this guess. And then I'm going to just make sure again that these guys are aligned together. And then I'm going to change the name of this from date tag to be guess tag. And great, now you have your 2 tags that you created. And then now we're going to add the larger text. So what can we help you find, and the introducing Airbnb. So hitting your text tool again, you can type what can we help you find? What can we help you find? And so I want this font to be about a size of 36. And I apologize if I'm going pretty fast. We only have a short amount of time, so I definitely want to cover as much as possible. But feel free to look at my Figma file that I linked in the Dropbox paper document for like any help. And always feel free to email me if you need any additional help with anything. And so I'm going to make this a medium-sized font, and I'm going to have it be about a width size of, no, I like that. Is that what I did here? I just want it to be the same width as this search bar here, so I'm going to give it a width of 358. Okay, and then I just want to make sure that these things are all aligned together, so doing that, making sure they're left aligned. And then I just want the spacing between these elements to be about 48. And so I'm just going to do that. And then now that those elements are 48 apart. And then I'm also going to just Command C, Command V this, and then I'm going to move it. And then I'm just going to place it around here for now. I can always move this later. And then I'll type in introducing Airbnb B+. And then for now we have our 2 headers. And so now let's try to also add this additional text at the bottom that says a selection of homes verified for quality and design. So hitting the text tool again, so T, it says a selection of homes verified for quality and design. Selection of homes verified for quality. So I'm going to make this a size 18 just to make it smaller, and I'm going to make it a regular size font. I also don't want it to be so dark as a pitch black, so I'm going to just select one of my other grays. So I chose the color 7B, 7B, 7B. And so I want these 2 elements to be aligned together, and I'm going to give them a spacing of about 12. And so now we have all our text for our homepage. And so now we can start adding these cards and images. And so now we're going to create the introducing Airbnb plus image here. So going over to your rectangle tool or selecting the shortcut R, we're going to just drag a rectangle. And so I'm going to make it consistent with the width of the search bar, which is 358. So I'm going to do 358 here, and then give it a height of 200. And then I also want my corners to be a little rounded out, so I'll give that a corner radius of 4. And then I'm just going to vertically align this to the center, and then I just want the spacing between this element to be about 24. And so that is 24 here. And I also want to add a drop shadow just to make the picture really stand out. And so I'm going to go to effects down here and add that. And I can go over here to the X and Y coordinates. I'm going to make that 0. Blur, I think I want it to be a little more spread out. So I'll click 16. And then I don't want it to be so dark, so I'll make it 15 again. And so I haven't had a chance to check the chat, but let me see. Hi, for those who find the chat, okay. I'm not able to access the link. Could you please send it again? I'll definitely make sure to send it again later. And feel free to ask Farah if you guys have any questions. And so now we created our Airbnb Plus image. And so I'm going to go over here and rename that. So I'm going to call it Airbnb Plus image. And so now I want to create these cards that you see here. And so I'm going to click the rectangle tool again, and then I'm going to give these a width about 152 and a height of 184. And so I also want these corners to be rounded out, so I'll click a corner radius here of 4. And then I also want to leave space for this white rectangle for the text to go in. So I'm going to create a second rectangle here, and then I'm going to give that a width of 152 as well, and a height of 70. So I'm going to change that fill to white here. And so we want to make sure those two elements are aligned together. And so I also want to make sure that I'm rounding out the two bottoms here. And so for the corner radius to do so, you would click independent corners. And so this is the top left corner, this is the top right corner, this is the bottom right and bottom left. And so I only want to round out the bottom left and bottom right corners. And so I'm going to make that 4. I'm also going to make here 4 as well. And then right now you can't really tell the difference between the two rectangles. They seem to blend together. And so I'm going to add a drop shadow. And so for this rectangle here, the background one, I'm going to name this background rectangle. And then I'm going to name this white rectangle text rectangle, because later on I'm going to put some text in it. And so I'm going to only add a drop shadow to the background rectangle to really make it stand out. So again, I'm going to go to effects here, and then I'm going to give it a Y coordinate of 0, change the blur to 16, and then make it have an opacity of 15. And then now you can see it kind of pop out from the foreground, or from the background. And then I'm going to also add a text that says home, and I want this text to be slightly smaller. I'm going to just adjust that. Also change the color to 7B, 7B, 7B. And then I'm going to make it have a spacing that's about 20 away from the left. And have away from the top is going to be 12. And so I like how that looks. So I'm going to group all these together. And so you can do Command G for the shortcut. And so I'm going to name this home card. And then I can also Command C and then Command V, and then I have another one. Command C, Command V, and then now I have another home card. And I want to make the spacing between these two things about 20, so I can always change that. And so again, I'm just always hitting Option and selecting it against another element to see the difference in spacing. And so now I'm going to name this Experiences. And then I'm going to Command C and then Command V again, and then give this and call this one Restaurants. Just moving my search bar, and I'll name this Restaurants. And so now you see that this one card is outside of our layers panel. So what you have to do here is just drag that back in to your frame in your layers panel over here. And now it's hidden and part of this screen. And so if you ever want to see what everything looks like, you can always just do clip content or unclip content. And that's that. So now we want to just rename, just for best practice, rename these cards. So this is no longer a home card, and it's an experience card. And then this is the rectangle card, the restaurant card. And so if this was creating a quick wireframe, this is what I probably would present to my team. But now if I'm trying to make it a little more fully polished and fleshed out to look like a mock-up, I would probably add images now. And so if you click back to your Airbnb image, you can go over to fill here. And then where you see the top left, it says solid, you can click the drop down and put image and select image. And so selecting image here, you can choose an image you downloaded. And so if you go back to the Google Drive folder with the assets, I have downloaded some images for you guys to use. And so you can just download this image here. And then feel free to drag and drop it right into this panel here. And then now your image is shown here in your mockup. And then now if I want to do the same for the background, for the home, experience, and restaurants cards, I can do that as well. So this is my homes one. This is my experience one. And this is my restaurants card image. So again, I'm just going back to fill, making sure that I'm selected on the background rectangle and not the text rectangle. I'm going to click that, go back to image, and then I'm going to choose the image, or I can just drag the images that I have down here. And so I want this to be the homes image, and then the home image appears here. And then I'm going to, again, change this image, go to image, choose image, drag and drop my experience image. And then for the last one, doing the same thing as well. And now you have like all your images, so it looks like a fully fledged out mockup. So you can also, if you want to see the images that are hidden, you can select your frame at the top. So either in your layers panel here, or just selecting this frame here. And you can do uncheck this clip content mark, check mark, and then you can see the things that have been hidden. Or if you want to hide them again, you can just select clip content. And so the purpose of clip content, it's supposed to show what your mockup will look like on the screen that you selected. And so if I go back to my preview, you'll now see that the mockup, it looks like what it would be for an iPhone 8 Plus screen. And so if I just want to add a few more like animations to make this more fully, more interactive, I can select on this home screen here. And then if I go over to prototype, I can, for overflow behavior, right now it says no scrolling. So if I selected vertical scrolling, now when I go back to my prototype, you can see that I can vertically scroll and see the rest of the app. However, before, if I did no scrolling, if I did that, you cannot scroll on this. So I'm going to do vertical scrolling. And now if I want to make these cards more interactive and be able to horizontally scroll on them, you can select the home card, the experience card, and restaurant card by holding shift, and then selecting the right on your mouse, and clicking right on your mouse, you can do a frame selection, or the shortcut is Option Command G. And so now I have created a frame for this. And so I'm going to call this horizontal scroll. And then I will adjust the frame so that the edge of the frame meets the length of the width, the end of the home screen. And so now if I select that frame here and go to prototype, I can do a horizontal scroll behavior. So if I select that, you can see here on your page, now I can horizontally scroll between the element and also vertically scroll. And so right now it's already 6 o'clock. I didn't get to finish the search screen, but you can definitely use it as extra practice to finish up what the search screen would look like, as you can see here. And so I guess I can quickly answer any questions that was on the chat. So I guess if anyone has any questions to ask, I can quickly see if I can answer any. Oh, Command C. Oh, sorry. That's Control for PCs. Do you have a list of all these shortcuts? I don't have a list right now, but then there is if you type Figma shortcuts, there is like a great resource that people have compiled that tell you all the shortcuts that you need. And I definitely follow this because I don't remember all the shortcuts, but after much practice, you will remember them. But here you can just type Figma shortcuts on Google, and then there's so many resources here that tell you all the different shortcuts. Are there any other softwares for other than Figma? There are ones that's like Sketch and Adobe XD, but those are kind of hefty in price. So it's really great that Figma is free for students. And so I think it's a great beginner tool to use. And honestly, once after you learn Figma, every other tool is about the same. And how can we design for mobile? I'm not too sure what you mean by that. Maybe if you could elaborate about it. Let me see. Oh, a lot of questions have just come up. Give me a sec. Sorry about that. I'll try to answer as many as I can. I can give up to like 6:15, but then I have somewhere to be. But I'm going to definitely try to answer all these questions. So one of the questions I got asked was, how can I gain experience in UX and UI design while I'm still in school? And so this is a great question. So in that Google Dropbox paper document, I have also resources at the bottom for ways you can learn more about Figma and UI UX design. And so some inspiration you can do is like Figma's YouTube channel. They have so many great tutorials that I highly recommend watching. I still watch them and I learned so much through it. There's also Behance that has like so many great designs that people have created. So some people are from the industry, and these are just like, if you ever are stuck and want inspiration, you can look at different designs for mobile webs and like mobile TV, laptop devices. And then we also have Dribble, which is very similar to Behance as well. And so you can just see like different ways that people are designing mobile screens and other like tablet, laptop devices. And then there's also Daily UI, which is like a UI challenge. So for 100 days, they give you a topic and you try to design a screen for that topic. I have tried to do this, but failed miserably because it is a lot of work, but definitely recommend if you want to practice your visual design and UI design to take a look at this. And then there's also awards here, which shows some examples of mobile and website screens that show some really cool stuff. And so you can always like click into these as well. And then if you guys ever want to see like some projects that I personally created on Figma, you can click the links down here. And so this is like a project that I worked on in Figma for creating a website for a startup company here. And so this was all built in Figma. And so if I click on these different tabs here, you can see that they are linked together. Okay, let me see. I guess another question that I didn't understand, how did you prototype the design? I lost my connection at that time. Ooh, I guess to go back to the prototype. Ooh, so many tabs. Okay, so I guess for the prototype part, the very beginning, I'm just going to do the very simple prototype interaction part because I'm not too sure which part you're, I think it's for Patricia is mentioning, but for this, I'm going to select that element. So for the search bar, I'm going to click prototype, and then you'll see that there is a connection drawn here. So then you will just drag that dot and then bring it over to the search screen. And so now these two things are linked. So when I click here, and this will take you to the search screen. And then when you click cancel, this is now linked to the home screen. I would say that, so one of the questions is, how did I start doing freelance UI UX design? I actually did not expect to get into it, but a friend reached out to me during quarantine, and she was like, oh, I need help for like designing a website. And I was like, okay, I don't mind doing so. And so that's what we started doing, and it's been a really fun experience. But now that I'm starting working at Disney Plus again, I don't have as much time to do freelance, but it's definitely a great way to kind of just practice your own skills. And then what else can I see? Do you have any examples on hand of some more outrageous or impressive designs you had on Figma to complete? So again, you can click onto these projects that I've worked on in the past. And so this was for a company challenge that I worked on, and this was creating my own app for student organizations. And so if you click into all these, you can see like different interactions that I put. Let me see. Can you repeat the URL site to the help section of the Figma or something you went to? Please go back to the page with shortcuts. I just typed on Google Figma shortcuts, and then I just clicked the first option, which said shortcuts.design, and then just showed me Figma shortcuts. And so I can answer a few more questions. When applying for product internships, what did you have to show for your portfolio? Was it mostly Figma mockups? So I would say that initially when you are recruiting for product design internships, it's usually a recruiter who's looking at your portfolio. And so for a portfolio, mainly designers have websites. Some people have like a PDF version of their portfolio. I would say that it's best to have a website because you're able to show a whole breadth of your different projects. And so I can take you to my website here. And so here you can just like scroll through all the different projects that I've worked on, and you can click into them as well. And so during a portfolio presentation, maybe your manager will ask to see one project or 1 to 2 projects that you've worked on in the past and really go in detail with them. And so usually I like to create a Google Slides that really showcase my whole design process with that project rather than just taking them to my website, because if I take them to my website, sometimes it's just a lot of text and it can be really overwhelming. So I like to create a separate slide deck for that project. Let me see. I am reading these questions. But again, so one of the questions I got was like, how is product design different than straight programming in HTML? Do they expect you to know Bootstrap HTML or Python or anything Ruby on Rails? Or do you have I ventured in learning this? Or is this not necessary? Or what do you do in my current role at Disney? And so I don't do any coding at all. Again, I would say that coding is not necessary for designers. It's great if you do have a little bit of background in it because it does help. And whether if you're designing something crazy or like really difficult animation, if that's really possible. But I would say that most of the times, a lot of the designers don't have background in coding. We definitely want to learn more, so that's definitely something I want to pursue and just build into my repertoire. But I wouldn't say that it's necessary to know how to program to become a product designer. Again, I started from an economics background with no coding knowledge, so I believe that you guys can all do it too. And so for my day-to-day role at Disney, I am still a product design intern, so I'm not a fully fledged designer yet. But for my current role, I do a lot of research and understanding and looking at different competitor screens. So sometimes, since we work for Disney Plus, I also look at Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Prime Video, and see like what features are they doing that are interesting, and kind of like really understand why did they do that feature, what was interesting about it, why did it work, why didn't it not work, why Disney Plus shouldn't pursue something similar. And so I usually create like a research document kind of just explaining any interesting interactions I see. And I also get to work on projects with other designers that are really like strategy focused based on like additional user research that we've done, and say that maybe a user is having difficulty with this feature and how we can create a better experience for that. And so sometimes I create different mockups and then prototypes for user testing as well. And honestly, my role right now is like doing a bit of everything. But I would say that once you're more senior level, you tend to just focus on like maybe creating the mockups or creating the prototypes. But definitely the user research is really important as well. And so I guess just one of the last questions that I got asked was like, what is my favorite part right now about working at Disney Plus? And so I guess I would say that my favorite part about working at Disney Plus is that when I started in January, it was a really new product. It had just been launched for 2 months. And so I got to see all the new ideas and like concepts being designed out and having a say in whether this like project or feature should be moving forward with. And then actually definitely testing the like mockups or prototypes with real users has been super, super awesome as well. And so I have to get going now, but thank you guys again for tuning into my tutorial. I'm so sorry that I talked super fast, but please feel free to again email me at serena.cha@berkeley.edu, or also click into the Dropbox file and find all the resources there.
Awesome, Serena, thank you for this informative workshop and staying overtime to answer questions. I'm going to end this workshop from here. Everyone stay safe and have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.